Key types of AI, we have generative AI, which is text, images, and video, audio. That is, you did get it installed, perfect. That is ChatGPT and a lot of the tools that we use that you may have used before. And then we have agentic AI. And agentic AI can actually behave very similar to an employee in which you can train it, you can give it a database of knowledge and information. It can actually perform tasks for you and make decisions for you, whether it's booking flights, whether it's pre-screening applicants, whether it's going through and doing QC on your collection phone calls, whatever you need it to do. There's a lot of things that it can do, and we'll look at some of those examples in a moment. So AI will not take your job, but someone using AI will. This is bigger than the internet, faster than the smartphone, and closer than you think. So if you think about how much this device in my hand has changed our lives, it's absolutely impactful. If you think about the internet and the iPhone coming together was a massive unlock, and this is 5 times that, 50 times that, 500 times that. It is massively impactful on everything we do going forward, and a lot of us see and use this already. A lot of us interact with AI, and we don't even know we're interacting with AI. So I'm going to take you through a format. A lot of the slides today you'll see is a friend of mine in Dubai launched a Vigile Institute. It's just the path, the way of AI. And we have a BHAG for across the globe to serve, to train 1 million people on AI. And so today is going to be very fast-paced. You'll have some time for notes, probably not a lot of time for notes. Hopefully you can retain. My goal today is to take you from being AI curious, you showed up in the room, to AI serious. Seriously considering the impact it can have on you, on your teams, on your families as you go home, and how you might use this in your day-to-day life. So learning outcomes, be inspired by AI and see the pragmatic applications, learn how generative AI works, start your organizational journey towards AI, and start a personal journey toward getting better at AI. You can use this, again, personally and professionally. So raise your hand. This is going to be a bit collaborative. We're going to go through these slides quickly, so you have to pay attention or you'll be completely lost. This is a 5-hour session. They wanted it in 45 minutes, so I've taken out a lot of the hands-on keyboard. Normally you would have your laptops and your ChatGPT open, and we would actually build out some bots and build out some agents. You're going to have to go do that at home because there's not enough time in 45 minutes. But first question, raise your hand if you use ChatGPT. Excellent. So most of us are familiar and have used it. How many of you have it downloaded on your iPhone or your smartphone? Most of us. Excellent. Excellent. So talking to a great crowd, we should be able to run with this. Raise your hand if your prompts are 0 to 10 words on average, right? So the prompt is the instruction that you give ChatGPT when you go, you plug in whatever it is that you want it to do or whatever question you want to ask it. How many of you use prompts that are between 0 and 10 words? Keep your hands up if it's 10 to 20. Keep your hands up high. 10 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 50, 100 to 200 words. Excellent. 200 to 300 words. Got a few hands left. How about 400 plus words? Most everybody's hands went down after the first couple, and this is the power of ChatGPT and of AI. So if you're using less than 450 words in a prompt, you're using the tool incorrectly. Yes, you can use it like a little query tool like Google, but garbage in, garbage out, right? Bad questions, bad answers. So this is why we get wrong, generic, or useless answers, because it all comes down to the prompt. Today, we're going to talk about that and learn from a business and understanding AI technology from that perspective why we need these longer prompts. And don't worry, it's not as hard as you think. So you've heard of John Maxwell's book, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. How many of you have read this book? It's a great book if you haven't read it, right? Great leadership is often about knowing which is the right question to ask. And with ChatGPT, with AI, it really is no different. You ask bad questions, you get bad answers. So what does a 450-word enterprise-grade prompt look like? If you hire a consulting firm like Procter & Gamble or whoever it may be to come into your organization and really understand what you're trying to do and write you a 450-word commercial grade prompt, that will cost you somewhere between $100,000 and $1 million, because a truly powerful 450-word prompt is game-changing. So how do we harness some of that power without spending $100,000 or $500,000 on a prompt? There's a URL. Again, some of these things we're not going to be able to go into. There's a URL. You can go to vigile.ai/AI_prompts, and I think we're sending out these slides afterwards, at least portions of it. So you can go to that, and it'll give you a lot of great examples. For example, we could, if we had 15 minutes here today, we could set up an entire HR department. We could figure out what kind of people we need for that HR department. We could design the accountability chart for the HR department, the job descriptions for the people in that department, the kind of policies and manuals that we need in their employee handbook. We could help it to draft our core values. We could make job descriptions based on the key results areas or your scorecards or what truly is important for your collections agent or your salesperson or whatever team member you're hiring for. You could not only then write that job description, you can write an interview guide based on your core values in that job description. You can help it come up with great scorecard measurables with which you can measure that employee by. Then you can give an interview guide to the interview panel or the interviewers for that position. You can create a checklist for each of them to fill out that are in line, making sure that they don't miss the important things around your core values and around, do they really want and have the capacity to do that job. So if we had 15 minutes, it doesn't take long to get to 80% of the way complete on that. That's something that, again, you'll have to go do on your own. Hopefully I inspire you to go do this tomorrow or tonight or when you get back to the office. So let's talk a little bit about the organization of the future versus the organizational structure that we have today. Today, organizational structures look something like this. You have an expert, maybe the CEO, maybe the founder, but it's an expert inside the organization. Reporting to that expert, you may have a senior leadership team, level 1 experts that are, they don't quite have the full story of the entire organizational history. They don't quite understand as well as the owner does the vision for the future, but they understand it well enough to be a level 1 expert and to carry this out. And then you have level 2 experts, right? Or you have level 2 employees who are, could be your middle management or front line, depending on the size of your organization, but that are carrying out what is 2 levels away from the expert. The next organization that's going to be coming and is already happening on a pretty broad scale, we're going to show on the next slide. But if you think about, an expert is usually 15 to 25 years of experience, maybe some exceptions there for entrepreneurship, talent, luck, education jumps. They're the authority that signs off on the work. Doesn't matter who did it, it's ultimately their decision to make sure it truly lines up with the values and the vision of the organization and that it's practical and applicable to what the team needs to be successful. Maybe you outsource some of the work, maybe you have interns, but ultimately this is usually the C-suite that are going to take the liability, right? If you come up with a bad repossession policy that causes you to get sued, it's probably not the employee who documented that procedure or the employee carrying out the repossession or the collection activity. It's the expert who ultimately takes responsibility and who's going to get sued for it. Level 1s usually have 7 to 15 years of experience. They're the glue that holds the organization together and almost are experts. Department heads, as I mentioned earlier, senior leaders in the organization. And then level 2 is the bread and butter. 0 to 7 years of experience. They're actually boots on the ground getting things done, and they learn by doing. So we have expert, we have level 1, and we have level 2. When you take ChatGPT and this large language model, so generative AI, what level is that? Is it expert, level 1, or level 2? How many think it's expert? ChatGPT is expert. All right? How many think it's a level 1 employee? It's like your SLT. How many think it's a level 2 employee? All right, we have about equal votes all the way across. Level 2 is where ChatGPT and AI come in. And ultimately, you still need experts in the room, which is what the next slide is going to show. So imagine this. You're hiring a new marketing director, you're hiring a new CFO, you're hiring a new VP of sales, and they're highly overqualified. They have 7 to 8 bachelor's degrees, master's, PhD, et cetera. They join your organization, but on day one, they're useless. They don't even know where the bathroom is, right? They don't know your values, your vision, your history, why our procedures exist the way they do, what differentiates us from the competitor. They don't understand any of that. Even though they're frankly overqualified, they can't actually do the job. They don't know the context, right? Your products, your services, all the things that we talked about. In that first moment, if you hand that Harvard grad, super smart, overqualified, a task to do, it's going to be very generic and probably not applicable or practical. So how long does it take to train someone new to be up to speed? How many of you can get this done? You can train an overqualified employee in less than 2 weeks. They're good to go. Off to the races. How about 30 days? How many of you think it takes 30 days or less? How many of you think it takes, you tell me, how long does it take to train someone to really get up to speed, to be able to be productive and efficient and effective? Coleman, you're a process guy. How long does it take? 3 months, 6 months, depending on the job, right? Anybody else think it's longer? 6 months, a year, 2 years? Obviously, it depends on what the job is and how good you are at explaining to them what the job is, et cetera. But similarly, the large prompts give enough context and data to turn an L2 into an L1, right? So this is not just about using ChatGPT to do something for you. It can also make your team members go from being L2, a level 2 employee, to a level 1 employee, because it truly does help us process, digest, analyze in a way that we can't do it. I just had an organization I was signing an NDA with yesterday. We have a standard NDA that unfortunately was created before ChatGPT, so it's legal jargon and attorney. They sent us theirs. They wanted us to sign as well. And so what do? Do you sit there and read the whole thing? Chris, you read the whole thing line by line by line and make sure you know exactly what it means and put your attorney hat on? You can. You can spend $500 and send it to your attorney and have them review it, right? Or you can plug it into ChatGPT, and you're maybe not going to catch everything, but it's a lot better than just signing it and sending it back and not really understanding what you're signing. So we're going to talk about this from a perspective of what kind of prompt would you need to write. If you put a non-disclosure agreement into ChatGPT, would you just say, please analyze this for me? Please protect me? Should I sign this? Right? So you can see in that practical application how important the prompting is, because a bad prompt is going to get you a bad answer. The old garbage in, garbage out, right? Your rental portfolio is no stronger than the team and the processes and the systems and the customers and the dealers that are sourcing and signing up that rental portfolio, right? Your shed that you may be building, if you have a bunch of junk material you're putting into it and an untrained labor force, what's your shed going to look like? Like a great quality product or a junk product? Garbage in, garbage out, exactly the same way for this. ChatGPT can never be the expert. It can never take the liability. Number one, it's very practical. So far, there have been 0 lawsuits filed against ChatGPT. Well, there have been against the company, yes, but not against the work that it outputs, right? Because ultimately, you as the leadership team, you as the manager, you as the CEO, whatever your position is, have to ultimately take responsibility for that. So what does the future organization look like with AI? It's going to look something like this, and it's looking something like this already in a lot of organizations that are deeply invested in this and really leading us to the future, is the organization revolves around your AI core. And if you look, what's different on this slide than the traditional organization? What's one thing that you notice? Besides it not being a hierarchy, besides AI being in the center, what's the biggest difference that you see? There's actually E. How many experts were on the first one? One. How many experts are on this one? What do you think a lot of them, I didn't count them, but there's a lot of them. How many how many experts do you need full-time in this kind of structure, and how much work can this organization, what can be their efficiency and their throughput, their productivity versus the first organization. The first organization, everything sort of bottlenecks through one expert, that information is not really shared in a systemic way, unless you just do a lot of windshield time with this individual, a lot of time that really you can accelerate, but it's a lot of time elbow to elbow. And if you're trying to onboard more experts, how long is it going to take you? A long time, because as humans, we only have so much time in a day, and we can only process so much information. So obviously there's a lot of ease experts in comparison to L1s and L2s. The experts don't especially need to be there full time. You can have somebody come in like Ed Wynn to be an expert on doing recovery, or like Nick to be an expert on contract. You don't have to have these folks on the bus and pay for all that talent all the time. The focus of those and the outer donut, right, not around the AI core, is to create and maintain the AI core, constantly optimizing it to make it better, quality assurance of its performance, right, inspecting what you expect. Just like humans, you have to do it for AI as well. You have to reduce the error rate. You ask it a question, and if half the time you're getting a bad answer, you have to go back and give it more data, better prompting, more sources for it to draw from. And then obviously you have to make sure that the AI is really being ethical in the way you handle data and how you're having it source things to make sure you're truly living up to your core values and legal laws as you use AI. This will take 3 to 5 years to form inside of an organization, right? So the earlier you start in your journey, the further you will be ahead. Assuming we're starting at the same place, it's going to take 3 to 5 years to transform an organization. Right? Some of us may choose to engage and then disengage. That obviously is going to lead to failure on an AI implementation. Some of us are going to put intense effort because our systems and processes are running quite well, and it's our strategic differentiation over the next 3 years. But it does take 3 to 5 years without some kind of extraordinary effort. So you're sitting in an interview. How many of you have done an interview in the last 6 months? You're interviewing someone to hire. And you get done, you really like the person, and Mike, they say, oh, by the way, I can't use internet or email. Right? Your whole organization runs on internet or email. So they ace the interview, but they can't use your technology. Would you hire them today? Depending on the position, there's maybe 1 or 2 positions in your company. Maybe if you have delivery and pickup drivers. I mean, there's definitely a place for someone who can't, or maybe they're an expert and they just know the business really, really well, but they don't know how to use technology. But would you hire a collections manager that cannot use email or the internet? Probably not. How long is that going to take to get there for this to be true of AI? You're sitting in an interview, maybe you're trying to get hired, maybe you're hiring someone, and they don't know anything about, or you don't know anything about AI. So, a couple things I want to run through. This can be practical and fun for us as individuals and as team members, so I've created a little bit. Normally, again, you'd have your laptops out. We're doing this together. Please just roll with us. Some of this work I did ahead of time so you can see. So there's 2 little cool tools. You've all heard of ChatGPT. How many of you have used Suno.ai? I think they've actually rebranded as Suno.com. It's basically a lyric and music generation. So I made us a little, if I can exit out of this, I made us a little music deck for today. I went to ChatGPT just to show you how easy this is. First I put a picture, a screenshot of the website with the agenda today. I had it transcribe that. How long would it take me to read a picture and type off all of this into a picture? And by the way, I did this on the plane last night with very slow American Airlines, so very slow internet, right? And it did it so much quicker than what I could do. Plus, I can plug it in even with slow internet, go use the restroom, come back. The AI employee kept working. So I had it output the agenda from a picture, not from a text file. It's the hardest thing for it to read. And then I said, make a short song in bluegrass style for our 2025 NSRA conference. Make it fun, light, and relevant to the Shed Rentone Association attendees. And I put in the agenda. That's all it knows. It doesn't know anything else about the organization. I didn't give it the website. I didn't give it any other information. So let's see how good it did. So I had it make some lyrics, and this is what that looks like. Let's see if this works for me. I thought we're in Tennessee. Let's have some fun with some bluegrass.
When the sun comes up, it's 7 o'clock. Registration's rolling, pins on your frock. Grab a cup of coffee, shake a hand or two. It's the NSRA, they're glad to see you. Oh, sing it loud, people first, we belong. Building up the future with the red tone song. From breakfast to breakout, the day rolls on. At the NSRA, shit folks belong. Aaron brings the word, John follows right behind. Breakout rooms are humming.
So you get the concept. And then I said, well, how about if we want a different kind of music? And let's make it a little more pumped up, some rap music.
Yeah, 2025, NSRA in the house. Shed rents are on, let's vibe. 7 a.m., get your badge checked in. Pins on your jacket, let the networking begin. Breakfast with the crew, RTO smart on the plate. We're talking shed life, man, it's gonna be great. NSRA, yeah, we're strong. People first, where we all belong. From the main stage hype to the breakout rooms, we're building up the future, big things gonna boom. Darren drops wisdom, Falcon's got the flow. Breakouts on deck, yo, which way you gonna go?
Accounting SOPs. Who would have thought an RTO song or a rap song on RTO? So think about how you can use this. This is a little fun thing. We're gonna actually go over here. We're gonna keep it super simple. I need a volunteer from the crowd though that has kids. Come on. I know most of you do. Right here. You are Taylor? Perfect. All right, so give me, we're gonna do simple here. I'm gonna bypass ChatGPT to save time. We're just gonna go straight into Suno AI. So I'm gonna give you, at the end of the session, a song you can send to your kids. So what's their favorite kind of music?
Lately, just like kids, they like
Don't say Taylor Swift.
Sunday school songs, they love it.
Perfect. So Sunday school style songs for Taylor from me as Taylor, their dad. I'm at the NSRA conference in Tennessee. I'm not from Tennessee, so if I misspelled that, forgive me. Texas is much easier to spell. And what are your kids' names?
Rilla, oldest.
Ooh, you're gonna have to spell that.
Rilla.
Okay.
Esther.
Okay.
And Marigold.
Marigold. All right. And how old are they?
5, 3, and 1.
And 1 year old. Okay. Anything you want to tell them? Behave for mama?
Have fun at the lake.
Oh, there we go. And have fun at the lake. I'll see you home on. Are you joining with the lake or are you going home? Not joining with the lake. All right. So when are you going to see them?
Thursday.
Thursday night, morning? Morning. And any of them in preschool? Perfect. All right. So we're going to do a Sunday school style song. Perfect. We got this in here. Let's do what kind of inspiration do we want? Let me see. I don't think it allows us. I'm going to have to go country. No, I already put it up there. Never mind. All right. So we're going to let that run. That'll take just a few moments, and if my internet doesn't go bad on me, we'll have a song for your kids, and you can send it home to them, a personalized special song. How about you take your wife on a date night, and you send her a song when you get to work the next morning about last night's date night? How about you're launching a new product line, right? You're launching new processes. You're rallying the team to get to a big, hairy, audacious goal they've never gotten to before. Or maybe you're celebrating a massive goal that we just crossed the hurdle and we're going into a celebration meeting. We're bringing in the donuts and we want a pump-up song for on the factory floor, on the collections floor, right? Lots of different applications you can use this for. And why do I show you this tool? It's a fun thing to do, but most importantly, it starts helping you see how really everything you do in life. How many of you are songwriters? How many of you can play an instrument? Reasonably good. You wouldn't be embarrassed to play it in front of us. Well, look at that. We didn't have the NSRA band. So this turns all of us, sorry to the folks that actually put in the effort to be a songwriter or play instruments, this helps all of us get to be able, if I can find it here, hold on. If your internet's bad, there we go. Perfect. And we got a little song. Whoop. Yeah, my internet's glitching. Okay, so here's one problem that you're going to have to do. I'm going to go Taylor. What's another way to spell Taylor? Because it thinks we're trying to copy Taylor Swift because you have kids. Somebody help me. All right, we'll go E-E-R. And I think that should get us there. It runs it through copyright. Make sure, for example, if you say, make me a rap song in the style of Snoop Dogg, it's not going to give that to you, right? Copyright violation. But if you say, give me a rap song in the style of a famous artist, S-N-O-O-P-E-D-A-W-G or D-O-O-O-G, it sort of picks it up as a little hack. Don't do that if you're going to put this thing online, because that's illegal, but if you're just sending it to your kids via text message, you'll probably be fine. So this song is going to run in the background. It may be done already. Lyrics are here a little small, but...
Hey Rilla, hey Esther, hey Marie Gold. Your dad's in Tennessee, but this story's told. I'm at the big NSRA. Looking at cars, dreaming.
I didn't tell it sheds. I didn't tell it sheds.
And all
Garbage
the things you
in,
do.
garbage out.
So behave for mom. Have fun at the lake. Splash in the water for goodness sake. I'll see you home bright and yawning. Thursday morning, Thursday morning.
Just listen.
Rilla, you're the leader of the crew. Keep an eye on your sisters like I know you do. Esther, you're a star, so sweet and kind. Marigold, you got a curious mind. Well, I'm here at the show. Just wanted you to know. Behave for mom. Have fun at...
Might gain some brownie points with Mama, too, for sending him a song, making him happy, and telling them to behave for mom. So lots of cool, fun things you can do with it. Lots of practical things. We'll go into that in just a second. What about for, like I said, events? Maybe you're having a company meeting. Maybe you're having your kickoff meeting. We talked about this, kids, friends, date nights. If you'll get with me afterwards, I'll send you that song. You can send it to your kids. How about meeting prep and slide decks? And I unfortunately don't have the time, but you can go in if you have some basic thoughts that you need for a team meeting you're having. How many of you use slide decks in your meetings? How many of you, if you're going over something more formal, right? If you're having a stand-up meeting, probably not. But how many of you wish you could easily make an informative, simple slide deck to make your message more impactful? Right? So if you look at the amount of hands on the first question, very few are using it because it just takes time, right? You actually have to think, be intentional. Not that we're not that, but it takes time. With ChatGPT, we could take whatever you're trying to present on. We could do another example like what we just did. We could go into ChatGPT, say, make me a 10-slide deck presentation for this team. I'm the sales manager, I'm the collections manager, I'm the sales person, I'm whoever it is. Maybe you're making a presentation to your boss, and you can say, make me a simple 10-slide deck. It's going to literally give you the 10-slide deck. You copy it, you go over into Gamma, plug it in, boom, 5 minutes later you have a slide presentation. It's probably 80% of the way there. Double check it, make sure when you click next on the slide you know what's coming up, but if you put in good information, and we just saw this live, right? I said NSRA, and I didn't specify, because if I don't tell it, it's probably going to think the Street Rod Association, not the Shed Rental Association. So very quick information dump just saying this is NSRA, not street rental, it's the Shed Rental Association, and we'd have different lyrics in that song. So very, very, very important. I actually love that happened, because garbage in, garbage out. If at first you don't succeed, try again, right? But if you try again with the same thing, with the same prompt, what is that called? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results? Insanity, right? No different with ChatGPT. So what this has been really impactful for me as a leader on is understanding how bad and how poor my instructions are, right? It's more of a reflection on me as a leader who's giving it the prompts than anything else. How many of you have given instructions to an employee and they come back and say, I did the job and it was terrible, right? And then you immediately said, man, I thought I hired a good person, right? Look in the mirror. This is actually a great way. We ran all of our core processes and procedures through here, and it was amazing how poorly they were actually written, because ChatGPT couldn't even make sense of it. And ChatGPT has the brain processing power of all of us in this room combined. If it can't stand it, understand it, and make practical application, where's the problem, right? The problem would be on the person or persons writing the core values or the core procedures and processes, not probably on the employee. So this is a great way for you to test, do you actually have procedures? By the way, you can say for a level 3 employee with 2 years of experience and their 8th grade education, right? You can make it and test it based on who the actual person is that you're training. How about sales call scoring? So in our manufacturing business, we use this for every single call and interaction at our stores are recorded. This goes in, we have our core processes at the end of the day and live to the employee, but at the end of the day, this gets output to sales management, and they can see exactly what % we are compliant with sales core processes. When we started this, sales managers thought that we were, what's your guess, 20% compliant or 80% compliant? 80. What did the scorecard show? 20, right? Guess what ChatGPT's scoring showed? Closer to 20, right? And so this is a great way for you to check. If you think about if you have a sales team of 2 people, 40 people, 200 people, but even if you have 1 salesperson, 1 collection agent, how much time does it take for you to QC and inspect their work, Mr. Process Guy? More than you have, probably, right? Because if you actually have to go inspect all their work, well, they're working 40, 50, 60 hours. How much time is it going to take you to do that? Now you can do it in literally seconds. More importantly, you can give them real-time feedback at the end of every single phone call based on your prompting. How many of you do business in states where you have to say, this call may be recorded, right? So how do you enforce that? There's a couple different ways you can do it. You can turn on your phone system to do a mandatory message, or you can tell yourself that your team's doing it 100% of the time until you get sued and figure out you did it 20% of the time, and now you have a class action lawsuit. This allows you to actually inspect and really make sure whatever it is you're expecting to make happen is happening. We've all heard the old adage, you gotta inspect what you expect, right? What gets measured gets managed, and this makes this so much easier. It can also give you interview guides, like I talked about before, based on your core values, based on the job description. So now let's talk about how generative AI works. How many learned Newton laws of gravity? In school, you learn Newton's law of gravity, okay? How many of you learned Einstein's laws of gravity? Nobody, right? And I didn't learn it, so I can't sit here and recite it, but Newton's law of gravity and Einstein's law of gravity, they're both about the same thing. Would we agree? They're both about the law of gravity, but one is incredibly intensive, one is incredibly expansive and very, very difficult to apply and understand. So why do we all know Newton's and not Einstein's, which is much, much more advanced, much, much more perfecting? Because Newton's are simple, they're easy to explain, and it works 99% of the time. We can send rockets to Mars, we can keep airplanes in the sky, we can not fall out of buildings, we can build large skyscrapers. Pretty much anything any one of us in the room is ever going to need to do, we can use Newton's. We don't need to know the more advanced. And that's very, very simple, very, very similar to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is using Newton's level of simplicity, working for 99% of decisions. We would be here forever, frankly, if we wanted to learn everything about Newton's as well. But if we tried to learn Einstein's, we probably wouldn't even get started with AI because it'd be too complicated. So where do large language models get their data from? Question. Where does ChatGPT get its data from? Internet? Anywhere else? People? What do you mean by people? People start asking it questions. You can actually turn that off so it's only learning from your inputs and what's available on the web. And if I put something in, it's not going to retrain, but actually doesn't even retrain because it really does, as we'll see. Let's go through this. It comes from the internet. So how do we overcome that? So what's the right next word? Remember we talked about it's predictive. It's truly guessing the highest probability of the next word. It's simply predicting what the next word is. So what's the next word here after how old? I put the slide up a little too fast. What's the next word that comes after how old? How old are? How old is? How old am? How old am I? How old are the financial statements? How old is the milk? That data comes from the internet, goes through a transformer, goes into the model, gets fine-tuned, and that's where it comes from. So the internet is scraped for data from every source that it can possibly find, including blogs, social media, Bing, Google, depending on which LLM that you're using. So you bring in the transformer to this, not this kind, name a word after how old. How old? RTO business. What's something that's important for us in management and RTO businesses? How old are? Are the what? R is the second word. It's the second most probable, right? It could be how old women quilt, how old people stay fit, right? How men shave, how dogs walk, how old should you be to drive? And then it takes that next prompt and it goes out again and it guesses the next word, and the next word, and the next word. ChatGPT is using the transformer for ChatGPT is using 768 dimensions. So don't overthink it. Think Newton's law of gravity for AI. This net takes a ton of computing power, which is why we couldn't do this 2 years ago. It was simply too expensive. So what's the only question the model and LLM is trying to answer? It's trying to do what? The one you ask? No, because you ask it a question, then it's giving you an answer. So what's the only thing ChatGPT is trying to do when you ask it a question? Okay, we got to back up a few slides. The next word. And then after the next word, what's it trying to do? The next word, then after that next word, what's it trying to do? The next word, right? So if we look at this, all it truly is doing is predicting the next word. It's super, super simple. AI really is not that complicated. It doesn't have any intelligence. There are no algorithms. There's no secret database. It's simply predicting what is the next most probable word for the answer to this question. What's the next word? What's the next word? What's the next word? And it runs that model with billions of parameters on the prompt to predict the next word. And it runs that new model with billions of parameters on that, plus the last word to predict the next word. And then it runs it again, and it runs it again. Super data intensive, but very, very, very simple. So the probability of how old M is 90% probability is a 75% probability. So as we said, why couldn't we do this until last year? Because the computational power required to run billions of parameters with these transformers running over and over and over again, stacking one word, because if I showed you some of these prompts or the lyrics that we just created, how many words are in that lyric set? I didn't count them. 130 probably? 130 guesses, 130 iterations of guessing what the next word is. Each word increases the cost because the model runs over and over and over again with that same word. So let's play another game to understand more. Think of phrases that, how many of you are accountants in the room? Or understand something about accounting? Hopefully everybody understands something about accounting, like balancing a checkbook and not, we heard Ramsey this morning, right? So how old, if you were an accountant, those of you who raised your hand, what's the next word after how old? How old are would be the next word, right? How old are the accounts payable? How old are these journal entries? How old, we have more words we could use. How old is this depreciation schedule? How old is this bank reconciliation, right? Because just knowing the simple answer without the context doesn't give us anything. How old is the financial statement? We're looking at 2021 financials when there was a boom going on. Are those the good financials we want to be looking at today? No, we want to be looking at last month's financials. Same thing for ChatGPT. By the way, you can take your financials from your CPA, from your accountant, plug it into here and say, as a sales manager, what are the opportunities for me? As a collections manager, what opportunities do you see? And it's amazing the output that you'll get if you give it a 400-word prompt. So if you're a race car driver, if you're a Formula One race car driver, what's a word that could come after old? How old? You're a race car driver. What's really important on a race car? Tires. How old? So the next word could be are the tires, right? How old is this engine design? How old are these tires? How old is the contract with our current sponsor? We lose our sponsorship, we're going out of business because there's not money in actual racing. How old are these suspension settings? How old is the track? How old is the safety gear we're using? Your goal is to change the prompt, context, and data to influence the probability to get the answer you want. You don't have to know the answer, but you have to, back to garbage in, garbage out, right? You have to give it a good prompt so that you get good information. All right, so one way we give it a good prompt, a lot of what makes a good prompt is giving it personas. If I said, from the perspective of a salesperson, how old, analyze these financials, that's going to give me a very, very different answer than if I say, from the perspective of a 20-year CFO veteran with 2 degrees in finance and accounting from Harvard. That's going to give me a much, much more comprehensive answer because we changed the persona, right? So if you have a question about your car, would you go ask your accountant or your mechanic? Mechanic. If you're asking something about your taxes, would you go ask your GL accountant or would you go ask a tax attorney? See, there's tricky because depending why you're asking the tax question, is it tax accounting? Is it tax attorney for risk? How risky are you going to get? You've got to give it the persona so it knows the context for your question. Also, make sure you put in their years of experience. If you want an entry-level answer, maybe 1 year of experience. Make sure, though, that you don't give me a 30-year veteran in AI. Does that exist? No, it doesn't exist. So make sure that you truly understand the person who you're asking this to, how many years of experience. It's no different than if you're going out and hiring an employee. How many years of experience do you want them to have? Use well-understood professions. For example, we call our sales team lifestyle designers. You think ChatGPT is going to know what that is? No. Just say it's a salesperson and they're closing shed deals, right? Or it's a collections agent. Some of us may get fancy with titles. At the end of the day, it's very, very simple. Make sure you're understanding companies and perspectives and professions that ChatGPT is actually going to understand. Language and location matter. Because if you're giving me tax advice for the UK or you're giving me tax advice for California, that's different than tax advice for Texas or Florida. So making sure that you give it local context so you're actually getting good information back. And then every time you're asking it a new question from a new persona, maybe you want it to analyze the financials from the CEO's perspective versus a accounting perspective versus a sales perspective, make sure that you're opening a new chat every single time. Because just like an employee, if I sit here and ask you a lot of questions, Chris, and then I pivot on you, and all of a sudden I want you to answer as my tax accountant, not a sales perspective, you're probably going to keep answering either confused or like the accounting perspective was, right? So same thing here. Keep track of the personas that work for you. When you get one that works really, really well, you can save that persona, share it with other folks in the organization, and say, anytime we're talking about collections in the state of Kentucky, repossessions in the state of Tennessee, this persona really did give us good information back. So are LLMs, are they search engines? We said it gets their information from the internet. Are they search engines? No, they're not search engines. You'll see this slide 4 or 5 times. The model plus your context plus relevant data. You can upload PDFs, although that's the worst thing you can upload, but you can upload PDFs. You can insert text into ChatGPT. You can upload a slide deck. You can upload Excel files. You can give it a URL, although it doesn't do well with that, but you can give it a URL and go say, check this about us page, about the competitor, about the accounting firm we're going to use. That's going to give you great results. And I won't take time to go through this, but you don't have to read it to see the left is not like the right. It came up with 2 completely different answers because the prompt we used was give an outreach budget for this rule in the form of a table with 8 rows. We asked the question again, we got a completely different answer. We did not get the same answer. So what's wrong? There could have been new and better online and offline portals since the end training date because not everything is out there on the internet. The numbers may be old or maybe approximate. Each time you run it, you're going to get a different answer. So how do you fix this? Your company, context about your company, your data, the experiences you've had, you've got to build this up like it is an employee. The difference is it digests extremely fast. And if you get it wrong, you just open a new tab, and you go and you start where you left off, change the prompt, and you'll get a completely different answer. If I start in your department tomorrow and you train me wrong, how long does it take me to pivot? Longer than 30 seconds, right? This will pivot instantly, and we can learn from what didn't work and sort of start with a new employee 20 seconds later, give it a better prompt, and off to the races. Your data, right? We use this kind of recruiting firm. We do job ads on LinkedIn or on Jobbing or wherever you may be. So giving it as much context and data so it can give you a relevant answer back for you. Knowledge, if you just rely on simple, short prompts, are going to cut off at the end of the knowledge period online. And if you reach the end of that training date, you don't have good information, it's because you didn't give it enough prompting. Back to that 450-word prompt. So, LLMs get most of their data from the internet. How many of you trust everything you read on the internet? Raise your hand. Trust everything that you read on the internet? Probably not. Can we all agree, though, that Fox has better information than CNN? Or CNN has better information than Fox, right? Or is it Twitter? Is it Grok? This room probably could not agree where the actual best source of truth is when we're talking about news. So, one thing to be mindful of, all large language models have built-in bias. And this was as of January 2024. With the shift that's happening in society, this may be shifting a little bit so you can get more up-to-date information. But largely, all these different models, whether it's Bard or Bing or ChatGPT, are economically left and socially liberal, right? So let's say that you're economic right and social conservative. How do you override this? You can tell it, I'm a Bible-thumping Baptist, and here's our confession of faith, and I want you to answer the questions from this. That's how you overwrite it. But if you don't give it a prompt, it's going to give you answers based on whatever, right? One's going to sound like Chad. The other one's going to sound like Biden, based on the context that you give it. In the absence of that, it's going to go out on the internet and come up with whatever it can find, right? So you've got to give it specific prompts. This is all about 450-word prompts. So your model plus your context plus your relevant data will get you great results. You bring your own bias in through context. Now maybe you're questioning something and you're questioning the way you've always done it and you want it to look at it from a different perspective. Perfect, right? Hey, we're a rent-to-own business. We've been around for 20 years. Look at this from rent-to-own as the way they do it in Europe. Look at this rent to own based on a consumer credit transaction. Look at this, from a completely different lens, so you can bring in your own bias for however you want it to answer the question. And then, of course, bring in your data sources you trust. All right, we're going to skip through some of this. AI companies advertise that they have search capabilities built in, right? But all it really does is it goes out with the prompt and finds the top 2 or 3 results, and that's what it's going to give back to you. Is that the data you trust? Are the first 3 results the absolute truth, the way you want to apply it? No. It's going to bring the top results. Maybe it's only bringing in those items which are paid by a competitor or by whoever's trying to sell that data. So again, model plus context plus your relevant data equals great results. So content gen. You can here do maybe your strategic plan, your graphics for your marketing campaign. You can do your model and costing analysis for your marketing campaign. How do we go up and sign up new rent-to-own dealers? How do we retain our existing client database to sell them another shed, sell them another playhouse, sell them another carport? Or it could be creating graphics for you for your web or banners. I'm going to give you a quick example.
Welcome back to the deep dive.
I'm going to give you a very, very quick example. I went to, again, ChatGPT, 450-word prompt. This is used with ChatGPT and Notebook LLM. And we went in and said, if I can find it here, well, it collapsed it. So basically what I did is I went in and said, I don't know how to write a 450-word prompt for a good podcast. Write me one for Notebook LLM. I gave it the URL of this conference. I gave it that prompt, and it takes about 10 minutes. So again, I'm not going to do it live. I'm just going to start playing it for you. This is what it came up with. Take a listen.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We spend a lot of time analyzing massive institutions, global economic forces, but sometimes the most sophisticated
I'm going to fast
apply
forward
to
it.
a physical structure, but one that's usually non-permanent.
Right. So for listeners who maybe aren't deep in niche asset finance, and I have to admit, when I saw Shed Rental Association, I wasn't exactly expecting to talk about complex credit regulations. Can you just quickly walk us through the basics? How does that rent-to-own model work for a shed?
Sure. Fundamentally, it's a lease agreement. The renter pays installments, usually monthly. A part of that payment bills towards eventual ownership or equity. But crucially, because these are typically movable structures, unlike a house,
Right, not a permanent fixture.
Exactly. So the arrangement often falls outside traditional mortgage finance or even typical auto loan rules. And that creates this sort of regulatory gray area that the NSRA has.
So with a very simple prompt to ChatGPT, which created my prompt for the podcast, it created an 11-minute, because I said keep it short, an 11-minute podcast that if I let you listen to the whole thing, it's pretty powerful, right? It would probably take you and I, 3 or 4 hours of prep to be able to come up with this concise of a podcast. Where can you use this? You can use this for training. Maybe you're wanting to talk about your vision and your values. Maybe you want to talk about a particular core process or why we do something the way that we do. In religion, in church, personally, maybe for your kids, your family core values, or just for the organization, you can bring all this in and tie it together very, very easily inside of these LLMs. All right, couple more points I'm going to touch on. We're over time. Data security. How many of you are concerned about plugging in your financials to ChatGPT? Okay. Data security has obviously been around since cavemen. I mean, everybody was scared that somebody else is going to find out my strategy and they're going to take our food source. They're going to find out my trading routes. 80% of data simply does not matter. 20% of data is worth gold. And for our industry, maybe it's 95% of data doesn't matter. Maybe it's 70%, but it's not going to be 90% of data matters. Very, very small portion of the data inside your organization, inside of an organization, actually matters. So it's not about who you give your data to, but rather, would I trust this person anyways? So if you're giving this to Google, think about it. If you use Google Suite, they already have all this information anyways. They're not going to go out and sell it and give it away. If you trust Google with your email or Microsoft, they already have this anyways. It's impossible to protect 100% of our data, and it's counterproductive. We're going to spend, $1,000 to save 10 cents. It's simply not worth it. So focus on the most important thing. Here's a couple of industries, obviously, that you need to be much more careful because they're highly regulated. Healthcare and government, for example. But a couple of quick tips on how you can protect your data. You can go into ChatGPT and you can use incognito mode. You have to be careful how you set up the settings, otherwise it's never going to learn about your organization, but it definitely won't share it externally. Or you can just scrub the data, right? And you can put this in ChatGPT and say remove company names and change all product lines and employee names. Guess what? If XYZ competitor gets a hold of that new scrub spreadsheet, it's not going to mean anything to them. Because instead of shed, it says car. Instead of Billy, it says Sally. Instead of backyard leasing, it says XYZ Financial Services. So this is a very simple, quick prompt that you can do to scrub your data. You can use enterprise AI, which is probably not something that most of us need to use, or you can actually run AI on your local servers if you're really, really concerned about it. So in closing, I want us to take just a few minutes to think about a process in our business, that your team, your department, your company, or you personally could greatly improve with the help of turning level 2 employees into level 1 employees, and by the expert giving the model more information and better training so that you don't have to have as many employees doing the redundant tasks. Or, better yet, you take the 12 employees you have and now you're doing the work of 25 employees. It's doing automated collection calls, but not the one that sounds like a robot. Press 1 to make a payment, right? Somebody that can actually talk to and, hey, I need to change my due date. And it can give a good answer back as a level 3 employee would. So take just a moment and think where you can apply this. Finance, accounting, sales, collections, graphic design, writing job descriptions, coming up with good measurables for your team. And we're going to take just a few from the crowd before we get you out of here. Who's thought of something? One thing that you can improve, one area this could help you.
Well, you mentioned about podcasts. We have continual recurring challenge to train the sales team on how to sell RTO. So creating a podcast and just shipping them out or making them accessible.
So using it to develop training material. You can even use it to test your training material to see if it actually says what you're trying to say. You had something?
Oh yeah, just training, getting motivational content for your dealer network.
Getting motivational content for your dealer network that's relevant to you as a company, right? So it's not some off the shelf. For this side of the room, one thing that you can use this for in your, not Jim, sorry, Mr. Coleman.
Customer service training.
Customer service training. Give us an example.
It could review the customer calls and train them on how we want them to speak to customers, but also to be effectively at the close, aka collect the deal.
And you can use a ChatGPT assistant to create that, or nowadays there's a lot of off-the-shelf tools that you can use to be able to aggregate that data, compare it against your training, and see what the compliance is to that. We have one more from the back of the room. One more area that you can see where you could use ChatGPT or AI to actually help you get better. Leland? Use it to test everything I said. Perfect. So the good news is I was actually recording it so I can test it. This is going to be based on your memory to go back and test it. 100%. You can use it to take meeting notes, by the way, right? Obviously make sure that it's not a confidential meeting and you're able to do so, but you can use it to take meeting notes and it gives you the skinny on what your project management, right? You're having a client call and you're setting up this project, or your automated note-taking for your collection calls. So it's logging in there. Mom died last week. How many moms does this person have, right? And so automatically logging in your CRM and your collections tool. Many, many, many uses that we can have for this. So again, this is the organization of the future. Experts training the model around an AI core, fewer L2s, and elevating your L2s to L1s, which gets you efficiencies, right? You can hire somebody more junior to be able to do a more senior job. All right, the last thing is, as you're leaving here, where is your data? If I said, send me all of your, because again, garbage in, garbage out. If Bob, who got fired 3 months ago, if he's the only one who knew how we process collections when there, or repossessions when there's a dog in the backyard, you're gonna have to go call Bob and ask him what the process was, or do you have it documented in a procedure that you can plug into this? AI will not pull this out of your head. AI will not pull it out of a bunch of spreadsheets laying around or physical documentation. You can scan it, you can use AI to help you aggregate the data, but you've gotta be able to have good access to your data. QuickBooks works very well for this. SQL servers with RTO Pro. I mean, there's many ways you can bring this in. Google Sheets, Google Drive. PDFs aren't the best. They're some of the worst actually, but it still does a lot better than nothing. So think about where all you need to aggregate data from. So FAFO is the best way for you and I to implement AI. Simply fool around and find out. Did you ever think about creating a song for your kids? Right? Now you did. Tomorrow you'll think of something different. I wonder if it can do that. Punch it in and see. And when you start fooling around and finding out, you will naturally come across more and more applications and more ways to actually let this have an impact on your life. By the way, personal budgeting, hate it. Not a Dave Ramsey naturally. And so take all my spend off of all my bank accounts, plug it into ChatGPT, boom, done. Right? Almost every debit card, credit card, and bank has downloadable CSV files. And you can say, categorize them on food, travel and entertainment, mortgage payment, insurance, school, kids, my spending, her spending, whatever categories you want, and it will put that out in the pie chart for you, or a graph, or a spreadsheet, and analyze all this data from you from all these different sources. That would take me, and I'm pretty good on spreadsheets and technology, it would take me hours to do that, versus it takes me about 20 minutes. And by the time I'm hours into it, I'm distracted and off to the next thing, and what happens? I keep spending on stuff I shouldn't be spending money on. So AI isn't the future, it's now. It's not here to replace us, but to elevate us. With the right lens, AI is a force multiplier, turning bold vision into scalable reality. Together, let's build smarter, adapt faster, and lead with courage. Thank you.